Welcome back to another video here at Wheeling to Dream. This week's video is all about flat towing, the most questions that we've gotten. It's our most popular video on our channel actually, and we've been getting quite a lot of questions in DMs and comments on our blog post. So we figured we would come to you with a video all about flat towing and what's involved. So let's just dive right in. I'm gonna ask the questions, Nate's gonna answer them because he's the expert in this topic. So we're just gonna start off at the top. We've gotten this one a lot. How do the Jeep's front wheels turn along with the RV?
Alright, so with Jeeps in particular, there is no steering wheel lock mechanism. It stays, when the Jeep's not started, obviously the power steering's not activated, and it stays pretty stiff. We've been flat towing for over a year now, and I've never had any issues with the Jeep following the RV behind it. It goes exactly where I go. I've heard some stories of some people, depending on the make and model of their car, that their vehicle will kind of wobble around or get away from them behind them, and they have to slow down and adjust. But with Jeeps, that's from our experience so far, that hasn't been a problem.
At least with Wranglers, right?
Right,
We
with
don't
Wranglers.
tow any other Jeep, we just have our Wrangler.
Correct.
Do you keep the steering unlocked or locked? So you just touched on that.
Right.
No steering
There
wheel
is no
lock.
steering wheel lock. I will say, just make sure that you, depending on what vehicle you have, just get into your user manual and check. If you do have a steering wheel lock, just check to see what it says about flat towing your vehicle, if it should be locked or not. I'm willing to bet 9 times out of 10 they should be left in the unlocked position, but just check your manuals.
Does the manual state that you should keep the Jeep in gear?
Okay, so this has come up quite a bit actually. I've answered this question for people on the video, people in person. A lot of people ask me this. So for the past over a year that we've been full-time RVing, I've always put the Jeep transmission in the neutral position. I did this as a fail-safe in case I ever forgot to disengage the transmission completely. At least it would be in neutral. That was kind of my thought process on that. However, I've read in the manual itself that it recommends to leave the Jeep in first gear. And I did quite a bit of research on this to figure out why. And basically it's to prevent friction from happening within the transmission of the Jeep. Now, like I said, we've been traveling for over a year flat towing, and I've always put it in neutral, and I've never had any sort of issues. I'm not saying that I might not have long-term issues. What I would guess is Jeep's either erring on the side of caution, or it's a very long-term problem that you won't see for a long time. So what I would recommend to you is just get into your user manual, see where it says to leave the transmission, and just go off of that. That goes for automatics or manuals. If you're a manual, it's going to be first. If it's an automatic, it's going to be in park.
Going forward, I think we're gonna put it in gear. We're just gonna make sure it's disengaged. We always double check each other, so it's good practice to just reference your own manuals. We are not experts. Another common question that keeps coming up is, does the Jeep odometer work when the Jeep is moving? Meaning, does the mileage rack up on the Jeep as you're driving the RV?
The answer is no. As soon as, with the Jeep being off and the transmission being disengaged, it basically makes the wheels like as if you were pulling a trailer. They're just spinning freely.
Next question referring to mileage is gas mileage. How bad does your gas mileage get when you're pulling a Jeep or other tow vehicle?
You're going to notice a difference in your gas mileage when you're pulling a vehicle behind your RV. RVs already don't get very good gas mileage. Everybody knows this. But when you're towing a vehicle behind that's anywhere from 3 to maybe 7,000 pounds, you're gonna see a difference. On flat ground, it's not quite as big of a difference, but if you're pulling up and down hills, especially in the mountains, you're gonna notice a drastic difference.
I really like your setup. So our setup is the Blue Ox tow bar. We have a base plate, so it's actually connected to the frame of the Jeep, and then we have the Patriot 2 brake, which is also Blue Ox. So that's our setup. So this person says, is it legal in all states?
This is a tough one to answer because every state's different from the next. Based upon my own experience traveling from state to state, what I do know for a fact is some states require breakaway cables. Well, some states require brakes in general on your pull-behind vehicle. Some don't. Some require breakaway cables. Some don't. Most are going to err on the side of caution, so you're going to need to have the full-up system. You're going to need to have, obviously tow bar and your tow plate to hook, but then you're also going to need a system, a braking system that your vehicle behind you will brake as you apply brakes. And that comes complete with a breakaway cable in case, for whatever reason, there's a failure and you lose the vehicle from behind you. That breakaway cable will activate and it'll activate the brakes and bring the vehicle to a stop. Also, you're going to need a full lighting system set up that also is connected into your RV. It's going to give you brake lights, turn signals, tail lights, all that stuff. And there's a few different options you can go in order to accomplish that. You can buy a cheaper, like a $20 set that just is basically two taillights that go to the back that are magnetized. You can stick on the back, or you can buy a whole wiring kit that wires right into your Jeep lights. And like I said, you hook it into the RV's lighting system, and it activates your Jeep lighting system, which is the best way to go. Yeah. It's the most difficult to get installed, but it's in the end, if you're going to be full-time RVing especially, you're going to want to go with that system.
It's just less wear and tear. You're not moving the cables in and out of the vehicle. For us, right now, as it stands, we have our stock bumper, which is not magnetized. So we ran into issues with the external lights magnetizing to our bumper. And then Nate actually installed our lighting kit in a state park parking lot at the visitor center in like 20 minutes. So, I mean, if you're handy, it's super easy to do. If you're not handy, you may take it somewhere and just have it done. But like you said, it's the best option as far as lighting. Someone says, in your video, you showed us crossing your safety chains. Won't they get tangled?
No, they're not. And the reason that you do that is because if the tow bar assembly were to somehow become disconnected from the RV, those safety chains are all that's going to be holding the vehicle onto the RV at that point, attached to the RV at that point. And crossing those chains, it makes it a little bit more of a stable, when you're pulling it behind you, it displaces the load more evenly with them being crossed.
Makes sense.
Yeah. When that happens, you're going to want to pull off and fix the issue immediately.
Okay, so this person asks, do I need to rotate my tires more often on the tow vehicle?
I would say no, because all the 4 tires are unlocked. So once again, you're not creating any more wear and tear on any of the tires than you otherwise would anyway. The only reason you rotate them in the first place is because, unless you're driving a 4-wheel drive vehicle all the time, you're going to put more wear and tear on the vehicles that are locked into the transmission. So I would keep it just on a regular rotation cycle.
Do I need a special license to tow a car behind an RV?
No, you don't. You don't have to have any, as far as I know, and I could be wrong on this, once again, you're going to have to check your state regulations, but I've never ran into this problem where I needed an additional license or an additional endorsement. I don't know if there are certain states out there that requires you to get a special endorsement to do that. I'm not aware of it, but I would just, if you're worried about that, just check with your state regulations that you're going to be towing through.
Okay. The next question is, what Jeep models can be towed? So, I actually have this listed out in our blog post. I did a bunch of research. I referenced user manuals very briefly, and if you would like to look over the different models that I found that can be towed, again, reference your user manual, but I have listed those in our blog post. It's wheelingtodream.com/tow.
Just check out the link above, and that will show you a more in-depth description of that.
In short, most all 4-wheel drive models of Jeeps can be towed. There's several Jeeps that don't come in 4-wheel drive, so go check that out and read your manuals. Is it safe to use a bumper designed for flat towing?
Okay, so what is meant by this question is, We have seen that some people, instead of when they buy their tow bar kit, instead of attaching a tow bar base plate to the frame, they will just basically attach hooks straight directly onto their bumper, and they'll drill into their bumper to hold those hooks on there, and then your tow bar hooks onto those rings, basically, or hooks, whatever you want to call them. We wanted to go with the base plate because we felt that it was more secured, a more secure way of towing a vehicle over the long term, since we were going to be full-time RVing and constantly pulling a vehicle behind 24/7. So that was why we went with that option. It's a more difficult process to get it installed, but we felt that it was safer. I did not feel safe with the hooks on the bumper. Well, first off, you're going to need a pretty heavy-duty, steel bumper to be able to hold that and not become warped over time and possibly result in a failure of the whole system. But even if you do have that steel bumper, personally I felt like over a long amount of time it would still put undue stress onto that bumper and cause a failure in the system, as opposed to a base plate being drilled straight into the frame of the vehicle. So
there are bumpers out there that you can buy ready-made to just install on your vehicle, and then it has the tow system there. With that being said, we still stand by the Blue Ox base plate tow bar system, and that is what we will continue to maintain going forward.
In the end, I would recommend, at least if you're going to be full-time RVing or you're going to be traveling frequently, to go with a system with a base plate that you would mount directly onto your frame.
Okay, the last question is, can you back up when flat towing?
If you get into the manual of the tow bar system, it says to never back up because you can damage the system. First off, you could damage the Jeep, the RV. There's a lot of things that can get damaged. I will say, in our travels, we found ourselves a lot of the times getting into tight areas while we were towing, and I did back up a few times, but it was only maybe a foot or less, just enough for me to be able to clear the turn I was trying to make. Anything more than backing up maybe a foot, I wouldn't. Well, first off, if you feel uncomfortable about it, don't do it.
Yeah.
But if you're going to do it, I definitely wouldn't do it more than about a foot.
And don't.
And it's just if
turn.
If your turn is right there, like you're about to hit a curb, you just back up just a tiny bit to make your turn. Now, if it was any more than that I had to back up, you got to get out. You got to unhook it. You got to make your turn and then hook it back up. And this happened to us quite a few times. So
more times than we can count. And we actually have gotten so fast at unhooking and hooking back up that it's like a breeze.
We could be done in probably 5 minutes with unhooking and then hooking back up. So it's not a huge deal. It does suck though when you're stuck in the middle of a road and you're holding up traffic. So we've been there. So don't feel bad about it.
Yeah, and don't be embarrassed. It happens. So that's it. That is all of the questions that we've gotten so far. So that's actually quite a lot. We really enjoy our Jeep, so flat towing for us is important behind our motorhome, and we just wanted to bring this information to you guys. It's just like an update to our last video. Be sure to check out our original flat tow video for hookup. Like, Nate walks you through the whole process, including hooking up your brake.
So if you guys have any more questions that come to mind, or any kind of concerns, or if any of the information we're giving you in this video seems off or you're conflicted about it, feel free to comment down below and let us know. We'll try to get back with you as soon as we can about it.
And that's it. We'll see you guys next time.
Thanks for tuning in again, guys.
Bye.